I'm going to walk you through setting up a dedicated email sending domain inside of your HighLevel account so you can avoid the spam box and you can have higher deliverability rates as well as comply with the regulations that are coming down in mid-February from Google and Yahoo. Now, there are essentially two places where you can set up dedicated sending domains inside of HighLevel. One is going to be at the agency level, which is the screen that you guys are looking at right here. This is going to govern all the sub accounts that you create under your agency, meaning whenever you set this up as the default provider and you create multiple sub accounts, each one of those sub accounts will by default be connected to this default provider for sending and receiving emails. The other area is going to be at the sub account level. Now, it's important to note that at the sub account level, whenever you sign up for HighLevel, you are essentially getting put on their shared sending domain, and it works out of the box, but in 9 times out of the 10 cases, your emails are probably going to land in spam unless you set up a dedicated sending domain. The process in this video is going to work the same whether you're at the sub account level or the agency level, but we're going to go ahead and set this up at the sub account level because a lot of you are business owners using HighLevel and only have access to a sub account. So from inside your HighLevel account on the left hand side, navigate to the bottom left where it says settings and then click on email services. This is going to bring you up to the section where you can set up your dedicated sending domain. Now, if you notice, I have a few default providers already here because I've already set a bunch of stuff up. But if you're just getting started, you may just have a default one here, or you may have nothing at all. Now, there's going to be a few things that we're going to be setting up here. We're either going to be using a subdomain or a top-level domain if you've got that. We're going to set up the SPF record and the DKIM record along with the DMARC record so that you can stay compliant, like I mentioned, in the changes that are coming in February of 2024. So one thing to note here is that I'm not going to cover how to purchase a domain or how to set up a subdomain. There's a lot of stuff on the web on that. You can go ahead and check it out yourself. I'm just going to cover how to connect these domains here. So what we're going to do from here is click on this button that says dedicated domain and IP. And it's important to know that you can have more than one sending domain as well. So what you're going to do from here is click on add domain, and it's going to bring you to a screen where HighLevel is going to ask you to enter the domain that you want to connect. Now, as of 2024, HighLevel integrates with Cloudflare and GoDaddy, meaning that if your domain is on one of those two places, HighLevel is going to automatically configure about 90% of this stuff, leaving one record to allow us to configure manually. So if you don't have that, the process is a little bit different for setting up these records. I'm going to walk you through that as well. So what I'm going to do here is actually set it up on a subdomain that I have. The subdomain that I'm going to be using is m.sciencedigital.com, and all I'm going to do is plug it in here, and I'm going to go ahead and add and verify. HighLevel is going to come up with this wizard here that just shows the URL there, and I'm going to click continue. At this point, it's actually checking to see where my domain is, which provider has this domain. And if it detects that it's either GoDaddy or Cloudflare, it's going to come up with this screen saying, hey, we detected that we have integration with this. Authorize this lead connector, and we'll configure the whole thing out. So at this point, I'm going to click authorize, and it's going to take me to Cloudflare where I'm going to be allowed to log in and then connect my domain to HighLevel. So as you can see, lead connector authorizes the DNS records, and these are the records that it's going to be creating for me. All I'm going to do is click authorize, and it will connect my domain and add all these records automatically. Now, this process may take a few minutes because all these records have to propagate and they have to properly be set up in order for me to verify. But once this is done here, all you need to do is click on this verify button, and you may have to click it a few times in order for these other records here to be able to turn green and in a verified status. Okay, so I've just refreshed my screen, and as you can see, all these records have already been added and have already been verified that they've been added. Now, if your domain is not on Cloudflare or on GoDaddy, I'm going to show you how to add these records manually because the process is pretty straightforward. Basically, you're going to navigate to where your domain is hosted at, and you're going to click on the DNS settings. Now, I know this says Cloudflare, but this process is literally the exact same process for every single host. You're just going to edit the DNS section and you're going to add some records. So what you're going to do first is click add record, and you're going to choose the record type. And if we go back to high level, it tells us right here the type of record that we're going to add, and it gives us the details of the things that we need to add. So for example, this one's going to be a text record. All I'm going to do is copy this host name and create a text record. So I'll go back to my domain, I'll choose record type, and I will select TXT, plug in that information here, then go back to high level, and I'm going to choose the values that need to be entered. I can either copy the values from here or copy them straight from here. Go back to my domain and then paste those values in there. Once I do this, I can click save and create that record. And then we're going to repeat this entire step for all the other values that need to be added. So we need to add an additional text record here, and we need to add a CNAME record. So CNAME is very similar. You just copy the host name there, go back to your domain's DNS settings, click add records, highlight the type of record that you're going to be adding. In my case, CNAME, copy this, paste it in here, and then go back to Cloudflare and copy this value that you see here and paste it inside of the target area. All you're going to do here is click save, and then you will create another record that includes the other fields that you have here. So in the case of the MX record, there's one more item that you need to add, and that's priority number 10. So we're going to take this, I'm going to show you how. Copy and paste it, go back to your DNS settings, add a record. The record type is going to be MX. So find MX, type in the name, okay, go back to high level, type in the value that it wants you to paste, and then the priority. So I'll come back here, I'll choose what it asked me to do, and then I'll select priority of 10, and then I will save this so that it's saved in my DNS settings. And when you do this, you're essentially going to end up with a screen that looks like this, that shows that the domain and the records have been verified. Now, if we go back to the dedicated domain screen, now you'll be able to see that I've got the new domain that I just added here, and it's high level's already created the SSL certificate, and it is an active domain. Now, my default sending domain is this one, but I've got another one in here that I can also set up. Now, what we've done here is actually allowed high level to automatically set up this SPF record and automatically set up this KIM record when we added those text records to the DNS. So this part is done, that part is done, and we've officially set up a subdomain. Now, out of the box right now, if you select this as a default sending domain, your emails will start to deliver better than they were if you had left the initial high level default sending in here. But there's one more item that we need to set up, and that is going to be what's called a DMARC record. Now, there's a lot of information here on the web on setting DMARC records up, and they give you the settings and all that. Essentially, setting up a DMARC record is super simple, but I want you guys to understand what it is that you're setting up and why it matters, because if something goes wrong, you need to troubleshoot some things later. You're going to understand what that is. Now, the DMARC record is basically it's a protocol. It's like a handshake that identifies, or I should say verifies, your sending domain versus who you say you are, right? This is going to prevent a lot of phishing emails, a lot of scams, and it's going to basically allow you to have more trust and to build more reputation on your sending domain, so that your emails have a better chance at delivering in the inbox and not in spam. Essentially, without this DMARC record, you've seen it 1,000 times. You'll get an email from what appears to be Amazon saying that you've got a package, only to click on it to find out that you're getting scammed. Well, the originating sender is not Amazon, but everything else looks like it's Amazon. So what the DMARC is doing is basically authenticating all these different protocols on the back end, so that you know that your reputation is safe and they know that you are who you say you are. And if you want to know more about DMARC, I've linked down in the description to the DMARC.org, and it actually gives us a few tools that we can use to create a DMARC record, which is super simple, and I'm going to show you how to do that here. Now, as of February 24th, okay, Google and Yahoo have already declared that they are going to get stricter on the guidelines for people who are sending higher volume emails to their clients. So I suspect that just like the text message regulation, this is also going to get stricter and stricter as time goes on. And they've added this DMARC record should be almost mandatory at this point. Okay, the good news for you is that it's super easy to set up. Now, before we set it up here, I want you to know a couple things, right? The way you set up a DMARC is a little bit different than if you set it up for a top level domain or if you set it up for a subdomain. And I've got this information here that I'm going to leave in the description of this video as well. I also have the values that the DMARC is going to have. Essentially, you can replace a few pieces of information in here and set it up exactly how I'm going to describe it for you. But before we do that, I want you to understand what this is and what it is that you're sending. Okay, so there are values in this DMARC section that come right after a equal sign. And I'm going to break those down for you. So the V represents the version, okay, the version. There's only one version of the DMARC, and that's why when you put a V there, it's DMARC 1. The P represents the type of policy that needs to authenticate. There's only two options in here, quarantine or strict. What this means is that if you send an email from let's say, m.signsdigital.com, but I'm saying that the email is coming from armando@gmail.com, there's a mismatch there. It doesn't match. The sender information does not match who I say I am sending it. And in the case of a quarantine rule, your emails are going to go straight to a quarantine folder or straight to spam. In the case of a strict rule, your emails will not even be received on the opposite end. It'll just bounce right back to you. Now, this is important because if you continue to send emails and they continue to land in the spam folder, you're going to get a very low reputation and people are going to categorize you as a spammer and you're not going to be able to send very many emails. The next option that you see here is RUA, and this means an aggregated report. So if you have this setting enabled, then every single day you're going to get an aggregated report of all the emails that you send if there's a mismatch, if something fails, if something passes, etc., allowing you to look at things and say there's an issue, and it gives you an opportunity to fix that if you need that. Okay. The next thing is going to be an RUF. Now, this is a forensic report. A forensic report basically sends you a 1-to-1 email ratio back with a report of what happened. Now, be very mindful of using this setting because if you send 10,000 emails in one day, you're going to get 10,000 individual emails back with a deep, breakdown of why each one of those emails failed. So in the case of a DMARC, I typically recommend that you stay within this yellow zone here, and I'm going to link this in the description. And basically, this is the easiest thing that you can do to set up your DMARC record. All this other stuff is important, and you should keep it into consideration, but at the very minimum, this is what we're going to be set up. So you can literally just copy and paste this right here and be okay with your DMARC record and be compliant. But I'm going to take it a step further and show you how to sort of deploy these things from the tool here. Okay, so we're going to use a tool to help us create that record. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in my sending domain. So I'm going to put m.signsdigital.com is my sending domain. And so that's the one where the emails are going to originate from. Under the requested type, this is going to be the protocol. Remember I said there's quarantine or there's reject. I recommend that you click reject. Some people may choose quarantine, but as the way I see it is this stuff is getting stricter and stricter, and eventually there's a possibility that everyone goes to this, and so you want to be safer than sorry and be compliant. Okay, this stuff is optional. Aggregating reports, I don't really care to get those. They're important if you're sending mass emails. Okay, if you're sending thousands of emails per day, maybe you'd want to get an aggregated report in case you have something in high level that is mismatching and allowing your emails to go to spam. It can let you dig in a little bit deeper when you get those reports. The forensic report data, I don't really care for. Failure to report options, it defaults to 0. We're going to leave that alone. The DKIM identifier alignment, we want this to be strict. And the SPF record, we want this to be strict as well. Okay, report format, I don't care since I'm not opting in for reports. And the policy percentage. Okay, note that default is 100%. So if you leave this blank, it applies to all your emails. So 100% of the emails will go through this protocol. They'll go through this handshake, and they'll be essentially authenticated the right way. Okay, reporting intervals is the default is 86,400. Leave it alone. And then subdomain policy, you don't need to have a subdomain policy unless you have a different policy for different subdomains. So what I'm going to do here now is click on Get DMARC Record, and as you can see, it basically gives me this record that I'm going to copy and paste and put into my domain. So with that being said, it's very similar to this record that you have here. So what I'm going to do here is go to the DNS settings of my domain, wherever it is that I'm hosted, that I've got my site hosted, and I'm going to add a record. So I'm going to click on Record, and we're going to add a text record. So I'm going to scroll down here and click on Text Record. Okay. Next, you're going to go down to this description here, and as you can see, there are two types of records to add. We're going to add an underscore DMARC as the name. Now, if you are setting up a top level domain, okay, you want to put underscore DMARC and just leave it alone and nothing else. It's going to look exactly like this, okay? If you're setting up a top level domain, a root domain. But if you're setting up a subdomain like I am, I'm just going to type in dot and then the subdomain. So it's going to be dot underscore DMARC dot and then whatever your subdomain is, and you're going to leave that right there alone. Okay, the TTL, I'm going to change this to 1 hour, and then I'm going to go back to my DMARC value, and I'm going to take it and copy it right here. Again, this is the same DMARC value, very similar from the ones that you got right here. You can remove these parameters if you choose to, or you can add them. If you remove the parameters, everything goes to default, minus the email reporting, of course. If you want that, you're going to have to add that in there. So from here, all I'm going to do is go to Content, and I'm going to copy the record right there, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Once I do this, I have created a DMARC record for my subdomain, elevating the trust and the email deliverability. So we're going to come back here to this tool, and we're going to just click we're going to test the changes that we've made right now to see if a DMARC record is present. So all I'm going to do is plug in my domain in here, m.sciencedigital.com. And then it's going to check to see if I've got those records established. And here it is. Well done. Your domain is protected against abuse and phishers and spammers. And I've got a successful DMARC, an SPF. And this may take a little while to propagate, but I've got a DKIM record in there as well. Now, there's a few other things that you need to know, and they might be helpful when setting up a dedicated domain and improving deliverability. Is that if you are planning on using this for regular day-to-day business, if you're a small business owner and you have a sub account and you're just sending information and emails back and forth with customers and you're acting like you normally would, then this is all you need. It's set up. There's nothing else that you need. The only time you ever need to do a warm-up to an email is if you're sending thousands of emails every single day. What you don't want to do is get yourself in trouble by setting up a dedicated domain, blasting out immediately 10,000 emails in 2 days to a bunch of people who have never opted into your emails. That's exactly the behavior that they're trying to stop. That's exactly the behavior of spammers that you're identifying with. If you're wanting to do that, you need to warm up your email accounts. The tool that we typically use for warming up email boxes is something called Warm Up Inbox. You can go ahead and check it out. I'll leave a link in the description here. And they're pretty affordable. Basically what this does is it sends emails from your domain to different inboxes, and it makes sure that those get white labeled and listed and landed in the inbox, so that if they do land in the spam box, they get moved and identified as like legit emails. Increasing your reputation, increasing your domain, sending brand, etc., etc., etc. So your emails are effectively landing in the inbox if you're doing mass emails. Another part of this is that if you set up several sending domains or several dedicated sending domains within your sub account, you can go to this domain configuration setting and literally decide what is going to go out of which account. So you may have a dedicated sending domain that is for all your automations and workflows. So that's the one that just sends that out. You may have a dedicated sending domain that does just your marketing emails. All your marketing communication goes out of that domain. And you have a default sending domain, which is the one that you use for like the majority of the communication and stuff. Now, because you have now a dedicated sending domain, you can add several aliases to that sending domain if you choose to. So you may have several users of the system, and you can assign an email from that sending domain to your users that they can communicate back and forth with. This is also important in the automation section if you're doing some sort of email, drip sequence or something like that. There are a few areas where you're allowed to put your sending domain. So for example, if I choose to put, a from email name here, I can now say that that email is going to come from, Armando at m.signsdigital.com, okay? Because now that is my sending domain. And what happens in here, what happens before the at, doesn't matter. This could be info, this could be Mike, this could be anything I want that to be. And I can literally assign this to, one of my users in the system, and only those emails will come from that user, etc. So this allows a little bit more control. And now when you're sending these emails, the header information on the receiving party is authenticating, and it's saying, okay, we know that Armando is sending this information. He's sending it from m.signsdigital.com. We've received it from m.signsdigital.com, and it's good to go. What's happening now without that sending domain is that a lot of people are making this mistake of saying, hey, I'm going to be at Armando at gmail.com. That's where the email is coming from. And then they're filling this out and they're going about their business and they're sending it. Well, the originating email, while this from field says that it's coming from Armando at Gmail, it may be coming from a different domain. It may be coming from that high level default sending domain, causing a mismatch. And this is a big reason why your emails are landing in the spam folder as well. That's it for this portion of it. If this was helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.